So today we got to play the expansion of Ark Nova. Now, we just got this that last week. I don't know how we got it.
I ordered from Capstone.
Okay, we got it from Capstone Games.
It's not been released in the other stores or online, but if you order direct from Capstone, it's available.
Right. So, I'm excited, right? I think everyone could say this is a really great game. I was really hoping that the expansion added a lot to it. But before we get into it, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and that notification bell because board games are amazing. And that's what we do here at Legends of Nirvana. Now, Randy, can you tell us a little bit more? Obviously, it was just released.
Yes, so this is a 2023 release, obviously. It's got a Board Game Geek rating of 8.9. It's not got a rank, but it's an expansion. I don't know if they even give ranks for those typically. 1 to 4 player game, 90 to 150 minutes. Ours was more like 4 hours. But, you know, that's how we roll when your brother's here, particularly. Age 14 and up. Designed by Matthias Wig. And so the art is also by Matthias Wig. Published by Capstone Games. It has an MSRP of $29.95. There's someone trying to sell it for $40 on Board Game Geek. I'm not sure exactly why, considering you can order it direct from the manufacturer for $30.
Well, some people may not know.
Yeah. It's on pre-order pretty much everywhere and pretty much the same price. Card House has it for $23.97. Miniature Market, $23.99. Boardlandia is the cheapest at $23.96 if you really want to save that penny. And then Game Nerds is $23.97. So there's not much range. And then there's everything else was pretty much in that same ballpark.
All right. And I would like to point out that it's not just my brother that takes a long time.
Yeah, you're a little slow too.
Whatever. So let's talk about the components that it added. Obviously, it's Ark Nova. There's going to be some cards.
Yeah, so it added 54 cards. Problem is there's a lot of cards and things in the game that got replaced. 54 zoo cards, I should say. There were 9 that were replacements. There were 6 new final scoring cards and 7 replacements. There was 1 new base conservation card and 2 replacements. So replacements being the key to this problem because you have to sift through your decks. Thankfully, they have numbers on the cards, but they're still going to have shuffled these many times, and there's a ton of cards. And you're going to have to go through and find the cards that they replace and remove them.
We found those naturally throughout the game. For example...
Yeah, because we kind of missed that section about the replacements. Yes.
So, no, I remember you gave me 2 cards for the initial, draft of the in-game bonus, and I was like, but they're the same.
Yes.
And I was like, can I have another different one? Afraid that you're going to give me a similar one.
Right. So what this actually adds is there's a new one of these association boards because there's a new function on it that adds another one of the little milestone markers or whatever they call them that look like tombstones, but they have now one
universities
that you can add a animal marker, basically icon, but you can still only have 3 of those tokens. And you can only have 1 of the new special tokens. The other thing that it adds is variable starting cards. This is really the main draw of this game, is that they have variable starting cards that you can draft that kind of give a power up to your 5 action cards that you can take. The other thing that's in it is there's obviously the fish. So there's aquariums that are added that you can build as special buildings. And they will store the fish, and some of the fish have a coral ability that let them trigger basically every one of those coral cards you've played up to date. Problem is there's so few of those fish, they're so few and far between, and when you mix them in with all the other cards, it's very rare they come up. So you're building an aquarium in hopes that you end up with one of those fish cards.
I did. I had a few.
I had a few, but they didn't come up very often.
You had to snag them when you could. But that's kind of the name of the game with Ark Nova. You gotta snag it while you can.
Yeah.
So overall, I mean, It's the same component-wise.
Well, they do have the little meeples that replace the
I have a penguin.
Yeah, so your cylinders now have animal shapes, which is cool. And the penguin's actually the coolest because it's two-tone. None of the other ones are. All the other ones are just one single tone.
I am amazing. And they knew I was going to get penguins.
So, yeah, I mean, there's a few other things. Like, there's some bonus tiles that they add to it. There's some markers for the solo play. Nothing really outstanding. But the main things are the aquatic animals, the aquariums, and the variable action cards. That's really the main features of this ads. It wasn't as extensive as I had hoped it would be.
So, scoring-wise for component?
I think it's fine. I give it a 7 because of the two-toned and the the figures looking like animals, but there's nothing outstanding about it. The cards,
it's per the course, right? It's the same as the base game.
Mm-hmm.
It fits in very very well within the game, so I think it kind of works out. So moving on to the theme, it's the same. The only thing common is adding more aquatic animals, because I think there was a lot of complaints, I guess you could say, about not having more of the aquatic life, and that the new expansion does fulfill that. But again, it's the same.
Yeah.
The rule book, was it easy to understand the differences?
So the rule book's fine. It's 8-page rule book. It's thin because the box is thin, obviously, and then there's also a glossary which kind of has the different iconography on it. Again, no cheat sheet cards. You have to flip between 2 different books to get all the iconography, which is kind of a nuisance. The main thing I missed was, well, the only thing I really missed was the attention, the little note on the front cover that's a little blurb there. It says that there's replacement cards, and then there's a bigger blurb that I completely missed that's called out very clearly. It's my bad. Saying which cards need to be replaced. It wouldn't change the fact that it's going to be a nuisance to go through your massive deck of cards and try to find
Well, I mean, it gives them an opportunity to fix some of the ones that they found to have issues with.
Well, there's most of it is just fixing for the iconography for the new.
Oh, okay.
So a lot of it isn't really different. It's just adding.
Well,
in the new
one
icons.
that I had, it lowered the victory point value.
Yeah, there was one. Yeah, there was some balancing, I think, on a few of them, but for the most part, it was just changing the iconography to match. They did try to do some cleanup to make the text smaller on the cards, on the action cards, by changing it into icons so that they could put the variable player actions into the box where the text is. Basically, if you're familiar with the game, it helps. If you're not familiar with the game, the iconography, to me, in my opinion, hurts because that's just more iconography that you're going to have to look up until you get comfortable with it.
Yeah, but once you get comfortable, it's a lot easier.
Yeah.
All right, so scoring-wise?
I mean, the rulebook does a fine job. There's nothing outstanding about it, and it's the fact that the iconography is now split between all these different books. I'm probably going to give it a 7.5.
Okay, moving on to the actual gameplay. So there was a couple of differences. Is obviously drafting for the action cards. So you got to upgrade some of your action cards that give you, player powers, essentially, because your cards are automatically better than your standard, but you get to draft them and you kind of get to pick and choose. So like one thing, both of my cards I was able to get gave me cards, but what ended up happening is I got cards I didn't need my card function very often because I was generating cards through other actions, which made it hard to kind of rotate through my deck, but I didn't need to. So I thought that was actually pretty interesting. I was like, normally I don't complain that I don't have cards, that I have too many cards.
Whereas I had the opposite. I never had cards. I was basically building them just in time, but I was keeping them. I really didn't need the 5-card hand size because I never had 5 cards. I think one time in the game I had 5 cards because I was constantly getting cards and churning them, getting cards and churning them.
Yeah, that was not my problem. So because I had a couple of things. I had the digging action. I had also to pull one when I could choose to donate. Instead of that, I could choose to take a card, which a lot of times I did because one is very tight still. But I actually really appreciated that. And I think Andrew did too. That was the one thing that, this is really, really great. The other ads, specifically with the aquatic animals, I thought it was more of the same. I'm not sure if it really added. I mean, it did, but I'm not sure.
I mean, my biggest frustration with the aquatic animal ad was that we didn't know what cards were in there yet. Now, I think as future plays come, it's going to be better. But, when you buy the big aquarium for $5 and then you put a 2-level fish in and then a shark comes up and you don't have room for it, it's a little frustrating because those sharks looked cool and had a lot of powers to them that gave you a lot of points potentially. But I couldn't place it because I'd already played my big aquarium.
Well, but at the same time, that happens throughout this game because you never know what's going to actually be pulled from the top.
But in the other ones, you can build another level 5, area. This, you're restricted. You've got one level 5 and that's it. And, you've got a level 2 and a level 5.
Well, and they may do that, though, to restrict them because some of them were pretty powerful.
So, yeah, I mean, it's one of those things, if I'd known there were those big sharks in the deck and would have left room for it, I would have been better off. I could have built the level 2 first, put that jellyfish that I had that took up 2 spots in that, and then built this for the sharks. But again, it's less flexible with the aquarium than it is with the other animals.
But, I think that's fine. I mean, there are a lot of other restrictions that get to be placed, and I think it's just something to consider. You could have always looked at the cards before shuffling them in, Randy.
we were strapped for time. We knew it was going to be a long game with your brother here, and we needed to get it, going. So, I mean, we didn't have a whole lot of time to go back and review all of the preview all the cards that were to come.
Yeah, I mean, overall, I think if you really enjoy Ark Nova, I definitely think the expansion with that drafting of those new cards is definitely a must. I think that was actually really, really great. I liked it a lot.
You got the player board variability now and the player card variability, and I think that is fun. It's almost like the prelude cards into Terraforming Mars. It's not quite the same, but it's...
But yes, the fact that you're kind of choosing a direction in which to go.
Yeah.
And that's very useful because depending on, what was drafted, I was like, oh, I could do it this way or I could do it that way. And with the cards that I drafted, I was like, oh, okay, well, I'm not going to need cards. And I didn't until the very end of the game. So, yeah, overall, I liked it. I thought, again, that those cards were a really good add-on. Overall, I think I'll give it an 8. I think the cards were really great. The aquatic animals, cool, but I'm not really sure if it really added... It was a nice add, but I don't know if it was necessary. Where the drafting of the cards, I felt is great, and I'm not going to play otherwise now.
Well, yeah. Well, I'm not going to play with either otherwise, because otherwise I have to pull them out of the deck.
Well, I mean, I'm fine with it, but if somehow they magically disappeared, I'd been like, okay, whatever.
If you did desire to play the original, they did put an icon of a seahorse on them so you can identify them to remove them. But then again, you would have removed the cards. You have to take the cards you replaced, re-sleeve them in most cases, and put them back into the deck. So it's more trouble than it's worth to probably take them out if you wanted to play the original. Well,
I mean, I'm not sure you would. I'm just saying that, because sometimes you get expansion and you're like, well, I don't know if that was any value. I'm not sure that made the game better. And I'm not sure that the aquatic animals made the game better. I do know the drafting of the cards did make the game better. And so that's kind of what I was saying.
Yeah. And, if you're rating Ark Nova overall, I think it's better than an 8. But as far as this expansion goes, I don't think it adds enough to make it... I'm not going to pull down the original Ark Nova based on the score for this. I'm not going to give this one... the expansion itself, I would probably give a 7. I don't... As far as the game of Ark Nova, it's more of a 9 for me. So...
Well, I mean... You like Ark Nova a lot more than...
Well, to me, it's the closest feel to a Terraforming Mars than any other game. But it's still not Terraforming Mars.
Right. No, I mean, it's a good game, and it gives you something different, and that kind of thing. And I was judging strictly the thing, because it is a good game. It is a solid game. The expansion did not detract in any way. But again, like I said, I'm just not sure... The aquatic animals, did you get your bang for your buck? You did with the drafting cards, is what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, I mean, it's $30. It's not that pricey anyway. So to get a little bit of fresh blood into the game,
exactly.
You know, it's worth it for 30.
Well, and that's the other piece of it is I don't play this nearly as often you do. I don't even know how because we're like everywhere together. But for some reason, you play this game way more than I do, and so for me, all of it's new. Yeah. So I'm like, I don't know. Anyway, all right, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We had an absolute blast, and we'd love for you to come hang out with us again. We'll catch you guys later.
Bye.